Hello YouTube, Robin Hood Bricks here, and today we're going to continue on with the development of our ocean exploration base. Ooh, ouch. Well, the addition of the Sharkinator is not supposed to be an amendment to this base that we've done two parts to so far, but two amendments that were suggested since last time were, first of all, the addition of an octopus kind of straddling the top here, which I really like the idea of, so thanks for that. And the second one was to stop these sort of sagging a little bit, was to add proper Technic pins onto both of them. But I've done one better than that and actually added in these Technic bricks with the pin kind of affixed, which keeps it all in yellow and means that they'll always stay with this sort of side of things, leaving the connecting pieces completely vacant for switching these around should I wish to. So it was a good idea that prompted an even better result. So thanks for that. So today I'm going to focus on these submarines because I got a lot of comments about them and I never really liked them in the first place. So basically I'm going to address those today. Now, so far in the first two parts of this series, I haven't made any changes at all to the submarines that come with the base donor set, Ocean Exploration Base 60265. And that's because I knew I was going to do some pretty major overhaul to them. So basically, I didn't think it was worth messing around trying to get them all to fit on the station at one time in the last part. Because I've got quite big problems with these submarines, really. And the biggest one is access. Because if you have a man in the front there, then, well, he can't really get through the opening cargo bay. Let me just move the shot for now, which presumably would be chock full of stuff to get out the back and into the station. And even if he did, he'd have to be able to walk through walls because there's a solid wall at the back of both sections. I suppose you could imagine that there's a doorway that moves there or it's an airlock or something, but if he's walking through the cargo area, then it definitely hasn't got any cargo in it, which means when it's attached, well, he can't get into the station. Can the cargo get in? I don't think it can because it's going out through this lid. So really, it doesn't work at all for me. So what's the point of docking at all if you can't get the cargo or the man into the station? I mean, it could be a surface to sea floor type transport thing where divers take out the contents and put them onto, say, build a base like this. And maybe it needs to dock just to sort of recharge with air or fuel or something like that. But surely that would be better done from the surface. So yeah, I think this needs a lot of work. Also, it's a little bit thin, a little bit sort of puny looking, and that puny look sort of extends onto these front arms, which are just a bit tiny with these little lame hooks on the end. So I don't really like that. But I do love the stickers. I do love these red tanks on the side and these big engines. So they aren't as mobile as maybe I might like them. So yeah, there are some decent features, but I think we can do better, as well as making all three fit at once, of course. So I'm not going to start with this thing as the donor for my submarines, and I do want 1, 2, 3 to fit on this bottom level. I'm going to use the, well, adjacent set in the catalogue, 60264, Ocean Exploration Submarine as my donor, partially because somebody sent one into the channel, and then somebody else sent one into the channel, boxed anew, and then somebody else sent one into the channel, boxed anew. So I've got 3. So it makes obvious sense that I should use this as my starting point. So very generous contributions there. And if you want to send a contribution to the channel, you can to the usual address. So really, if we're starting with this, then we need to really ascertain as to what we want to change and what we want to keep with this much bigger submarine. It's also really good because it comes with 4 minifigures, 2 crabs, glow-in-the-dark sort of anglerfish type thing, a nice sort of side build cave, which I'm sure I can use all of the pieces for in my undersea, sort of hidden crystals and all sorts of stuff. So yeah, it's a really good set as it stands. I really like this overhang here. It just gives it a bit of a different look because these ones look very much like the living pods with the just very open dome on the end. It's just not different enough, whereas this is a lot more different. Also, we've got 4 of these engines now instead of just the 2 for the sort of propulsion of the thrusters, so I like that as well. We've also still got the nice red tanks, but we've got now a dark blue and even a white stripe on there. So yeah, I think it's a lot better, not to mention the fact it's 6 studs wide. Well, that's 6 studs wide. I don't know, it just looks much, much more chunky, doesn't it? So yeah, a lot better, a lot bigger. Now, that's not to say this is perfect at all, because, well, it won't fit to the base at the moment because we've got this very unusual shaped back, and that's partially made even worse by this little rover, which I think we can ignore for today. So I'm just going to put that to one side as well. So that's not going to fit with this docking sort of situation we've got going on here. So I'm very much going to have to sort of guillotine the back a bit, which, given these very large pieces in the roof, is going to be a bit easier said than done. But the worst factor of all is that this doesn't look watertight at all. Basically, there's kind of a hole in there, but I'm less bothered about that because really you can't see it unless you're really peering up at it from underneath. And even then, technically, well, it's only a very small gap. We could fill those with bricks quite easily. The bigger problem is the back. And I just don't understand what they were going for here, because although you could get that little rover sort of going in or out, that would imply that basically this whole back section was full of water, normally, presumably. Or there should be a door, but there isn't, because it's kind of hanging out the back, as you saw earlier. And I can put my finger all the way into and touch the minifigure at the other end. So basically, he wouldn't last long without diving equipment. So, yeah, I want to seal off the back, put kind of a proper airlock on it and make it look like it's watertight. And though I like these claws being slightly bigger than these little silly hooks, I think we can do better on them as well. So a little bit smaller, able to dock, different arms on the front, keep all this good stuff on the outside and all this sort of gubbins on the roof. I really like that. And yeah, make it watertight, most importantly. So that is the plan. So I've witted long enough. I'm going to keep this one looking like the old one did, just for comparative purposes. And I'm going to break into one of these unopened sets and build from the ground up my, well, new concise version of the original. And then we can do it 2 more times to make 3. Okay, well, this is what I've done so far. And I've switched all the heads around so I can have a female pilot in this one. And the bottom I've changed quite a bit to include these extra bracket pieces, just so there's kind of a lip on either side of that 2 by 10. And that's so when it fits onto one of these sort of ramps on the station, it can kind of sit on it quite securely, and it'll be a lot easier to attach when it comes into dock. I've kept the red tanks because they're really nice, and these sort of bow planes and things like that, and the windows, but this is where I start to change it, bringing it in, and I've actually got it slightly longer by 1 stud than the original on the bottom, but then it will go vertically up, as I've said before, and I'll do that using these new facet bricks that I got in the last but one haul, and that will bring it to a nice flat edge. I was thinking about using rounded ones, but then basically they wouldn't have a very good seal with our sort of docking bits. It needs to be a right angle at that sort of point there. So then I'm going to have a kind of window and another Technic brick there, and that's because I want these to be able to be sort of swimming around on their own, and you'll be able to see in and see that they are airtight, but also be able to dock. So those 2 bits align perfectly with those 2 holes on there, so it will be able to dock. And then I can have some in the station and some kind of going around doing their business. So then I can add another one of those arches and some yellow 1x1s to fill up the walls. And I've still got that computer screen in there like the original, which has got quite an easy to lift off roof. I'm not sure if mine will be quite as easy to lift off, but anyway, I've also got room for some cargo if there was some. And I know this is quite a small doorway, I suppose, but maybe more than just the glass bit open. But also, I imagine in real life, they're very tight to get into a submersible. I imagine you have to squeeze and wriggle and breathe in a little bit, because it's not like they're got space freely available. So I can bring it back in using a dark grey stripe and that piece. Very nice. And then kind of a complete mix of pieces here, all for different shapes and textures and so on, and to hold 2 of these sort of Technic arms, because I kind of want these motors to be, well, away from each other. And if I had the normal technique of just joining them straight onto the wall, they'd be, well, right next to each other. And that's because I've basically had to reduce from the original the distance between these two end pieces from 8 studs to 4. So if I had to squeeze both of the engines in basically 4 brick length, then they'd be kind of back to back, kind of like that, and it'd look really stupid. So basically I don't want to do that, but I also don't want to go down to just 2 engines. So these arms will kind of bring them apart a little bit and still should enable us to kind of rotate them and so on. So I'm hoping that that will go on there and on there and still look all right. So, and they'll still be directionable, if that's a word. So there we go. That's my sort of equivalent. And I think they're still far enough apart to make sense. In fact, that looks pretty awesome, doesn't it? Wow, packed and stacked, all crammed together in a smaller space than the original. So I'll just put that one's roof back on for now. But you'll see that the equivalent sort of bit that I had before with the 8 long yellow section is now replaced by this 4 long yellow section, which means I can have this diddy roof, which is kind of like the original, but just kind of with everything squished up again. And then that will go on like that. Hey, I mean, it's kind of the same, faithful to the original, but yeah, just a bit more squished together with a very flat back. And in fact, the flat back doesn't look too bad. Maybe I should get a dark blue Technic brick for there. This grey bit doesn't look too bad, or maybe I could do that in black. I don't know. It might hide it a little bit, mightn't it? But apart from that, and definitely from the sides, I think it looks all right. And with that extra bit of sort of guidance on the bottom, it will be a lot easier, as I say, to dock into a station. Now I might have to slightly adjust all of these sort of ramps on the original station, which is to my left, just so it comes in at the right height to fit in with the docking doors. But yeah, I think that looks really good. And I'm hoping the roof is still, it's not as easy to take off as the original. In fact, it's not at all because that's been left behind. But I won't be going in it a great deal, to be fair, because it will be in the middle of a glass cabinet. But yeah, I think that looks rather good. Yeah. Now, the one thing I do still want to do is to play with the hands on the front, which is why I deliberately left them off, because the original kind of had these 2, well, elastic band sort of held ones, and they're quite fun and snappy. The elastic band is quite visible, and the other bad thing about them is, well, they're the same, aren't they? So I kind of figured that they'd all be doing different jobs under there. So if you did have a grabber arm, which you probably would, you'd only have one. So I'll just have, say, the left hand of each of them having that grabber hand. And then on the right hand, we can have something much more interesting. Now, I've been collecting parts for quite a while, as you know, and one thing that definitely struck me as an ace idea was to have one of them with this massive drill on. And this drill bit was on way before Power Miners. There were Rock Raiders, and 2 sets had this fantastic silver drill, including the Granite Grinder set 4940 from 1999. And that pilot looks very happy with his impressively sized tool. So there we go. That could be one option. Now, we're going to have 3 of these, so we get to choose 3 different kind of attachments to have. So that's kind of option 1, an impressive tool. And then the other 3 are all quite similar in that they are bionicle weapons. And the first one is this one, which has kind of got lots of different sort of mining type sort of blades on. I always think of that sort of boring through rock or something like that. And basically by using one of these pieces, which is a Technic piece from my sort of random Technic bits bag, I've no idea what it's called or what it's usually used for, and one of these pieces as well, I can kind of make the pair that I bought into kind of a double-sided tool. So I mean, that looks very sort of fearsome indeed and could be used to mine something. And then that could go onto this other arm, and then it's swivelable and can move in every direction. So I think that looks a lot more like what you'd expect to see. One hand and one, wow, very powerful tool there. Yeah, check that out. So I've got two more versions of this. So if that was option 1, that must be option 2. Option 3 is this version of the same with these kind of 2 disc blades. I think that looks rather fearsome as well. So that's kind of option 3. And then option 4 is another grabber, but a really sort of spiky one, which I really like as well. So it might be that I'm save option 1, the impressive tool, for a bigger submarine somewhere else in my backdrop. And since all 3 of these are supposed to be similar or the same, then maybe they should get one of these each. So basically, I'll put that on there and save that for the third one. I need to make this one smaller, so it's the same as this scale. And I also need to make the third one from the third, where is it? Box of Lego. I've lost it. So I'm going to do that next. All right, 2 down. Looking exactly the same apart from the tool on the front. Looking very good. And yeah, I've started stripping down the original big one so I can make number 3 as well with the disc blade. And I think we'll have to have a naming competition. And then there were 3. Well, I'm an absolute expert at building these, having built 3 of them in a row now. I can do it without thinking, really. But yeah, I really like them being exactly the same, like a kind of fleet of submarines, but just with that subtle difference of the incredibly massive sort of weapon or tool on the front there that makes all the difference. So I really like them. I haven't put the 64 stickers on the other 2 because I figure I'll have a 46 and a 64 and a 4 or maybe just a 6. To give them all slightly different numbers in due course when I've got a bit more time. But yeah, I think they look really good. And they keep the white stripe, the dark blue stripe, yellow, all the rest of it. All the Technic bricks in there are now yellow rather than dark bluish grey. And yeah, I think they look really nice actually. And we can still angle all of these so we can have them going around on their merry way. So yeah, I like them a lot. Oh, and I've kept the hook on the top so they can be brought in from, with the help of the crane, from the outside water into docking. And I'll just experiment with putting one of them on here. Now, as I say, I'm going to actually change all this next time to give us a lot more room, but essentially, well, it fits already actually. There we go. Now, in order for me to fit 3 on, I think they will actually fit because this motor's a bit further away from the back end than they were before on these ones where they were right level with the back end, which is why they were clashing. So I think I could probably fit more than one on. Shall we try it? Let's see what it looks like. It's going to be very congested. Yeah, it started hitting the floor above, but they won't hit each other. Yeah, okay, that's not going to go on because of the floor above, but you get the idea. They're going to go on like that. And what I'm going to do to space them out even more is put a big gap in here next time to bring the living quarters away from the submarine level. And I'm also going to just extend these dark bluish grey bits out by 1, so they're kind of like double depth. Kind of like that. So when they come in, they don't have to go in as far. So you see that's already fitting in now. So it's going to be incredibly busy, and at least one of them is not going to be in its dock at any one time, which is why we put the window on the back so it still can keep water out. As I said earlier, I still might look out for some dark blue 1x2 Technic bricks for that level. But yeah, I'm really happy with them. They do look a bit fearsome, I must say. So do let me know what you think of those. But I think whatever you think, they've got to be a major improvement on the really sort of skinny one with the puny arms that we started off with. And I definitely think I'll be able to strip these down and use that main body section as either some sort of cargo container or maybe a bit of tunnelling in between some of the living quarters, or, well, all sorts of things really, even vertical columns or a tank of something, maybe a massive oxygen tank. So it won't go to waste at all. And I've got an absolute raft of pieces as well in yellow and submarine sort of shapes from each of the sets that were gifted to the channel that weren't used in my smaller build with its very flat bottom. Yeah, I'm loving these. I think they're really cute. Tell me what you think. Well, this thing is an absolute crazy blur of yellow details at the moment. It really does need spacing out a bit more. And I think that's what I'm going to be doing in part 4, basically putting some more gaps in the sort of very busy living section and kind of spreading it out so it goes right over here or something like that. and putting a section like a collar in between the submarine level and all of the living accommodation, and as I just said, spreading out the actual docks themselves, so this all fits a lot better together because it is looking a bit too cramped at the moment. But yeah, nonetheless, I like it. It is very packed and stacked. It's absolutely full of details. I'm really glad of the improvements from these very puny basic ones. So yeah, do let me know if there's any way you can see of improving them. And also, we're going to have a naming competition, I think. I tend to name all my vessels and all my boats and all my ships and everything else like that. So why not these 3 submarines? Now I'm thinking they should have similar names like Huey, Dewey and Louie because they're all very similar, just with the different tools. But maybe it should represent the tools. So sort of grabby, cutty and spinny or something like that. So suggestions in the comments section as usual, and that would be greatly appreciated. Cool. So as always, thank you very much for watching. It is appreciated. Do remember to like, comment and subscribe for more awesome LEGO videos. And do also remember to give your suggestion for the names of these 3 subs. I think they should be quite funny names if you can manage that. And if you value this channel, there are many ways in which you can support it. Do check out the links in the description below. And next time on Robin Hood Bricks, we'll be doing a mock build on Monday. I think it's about time I did something new, so I'll think about that. Maybe one of the ships we've been buying for recently. Then a brick haul on Wednesday, and then, well, maybe we'll do part 4 of this next Friday. So, until all of that, see you! Beautiful.